Did Sharpay really like Troy? Now, I truly think that Sharpay did have a crush on Troy, but at the end of the day, when we look at Troy and Sharpay versus Troy and Gabriella, whose heart was more pure? Gabriella, throughout the series, is noted as a safe place for Troy to be fully himself, to challenge himself. When he is with Gabriella, he feels safe to break free of the status quo. And whilst I'm sure there are some people that would argue that Sharpay also encouraged Troy by pulling him into her musical number, I would argue she really wanted to control Troy. The funny thing about this is that when we look at who was everybody's match for match competition, you would assume Sharpay's match for competition would be Gabriella, right? Because the girl part, the boy part, right? Ryan's match would be Troy, right? And you would think at the end of the day, why are we trying to fight against Troy and Gabriella when really, if you like Troy, wouldn't you just be fighting to get the part with Troy? Kind of similar to High School Musical 3. But the interesting thing about Sharpay is that, we live within the status quo of it all, right? And Sharpay, at the end of the day, wants to control Troy, right? Troy is a trophy in this sense. The interesting thing about Sharpay when we look at her pursuing Troy, right, is this interesting thing that we see from the beginning of the movie. We know that she is clued in, she likes Troy, she's, I guess, flirting with Troy, right, because he is a status symbol, right? At the same time, when he tries to go into the theater, right, like I said, we could have just, tried out for the parts and assumed maybe Sharpay would still get her part and maybe Troy would have been cast as the boy instead of Ryan. Instead of just thinking that way, right? We said, wait, I know that I was like, hey Troy, big game today, right? Now she says, no, you're a jock and you're trying to get into my theater, right? And you're trying to make a mockery of my theater, right? Now we've got a problem, right? Isn't it interesting? Because you would have thought that if she really, I guess, was determined in a way, not that this would be the right way, to get close to Troy, that she would maybe try to be in a musical with him. It's very interesting, but it really represents the status quo of it all. Troy and Sharpay exist in a similar hierarchy, right? They are fairly popular, or they have a lot of regard in their spaces, right? So you would think there wouldn't be beef in that way, right? Because Troy, honestly, he never did anything to Sharpay, which is the funny part. Right? We still see Sharpay continually pursue Troy, despite the fact that he is clearly not into her in any regard. But he is as nice as he could be to someone like her, right? Because we are simultaneously keeping the status quo, right? Sharpay doesn't want to welcome in Troy right away until we get to High School Musical 2, right? It's also, I would assume, about Gabriella, I'm gonna steal you away, right? But at the same time, she is inviting, for the first time, Troy to come in with her and sing and do the talent show with her, while simultaneously pushing him back into the status quo, right? Because what is her family offering Troy? An opportunity to get into U of A, an opportunity to play with the Red Hawks, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, it's great, you do this little fun thing, you discover you like to sing, hey, maybe you can even sing with me now and again, but I'm the star of the show and you're gonna do what you have always done. Which is interesting to me because this really, to me, showcases that she sees Troy as a threat. In High School Musical 3, 4 people get a chance at the Juilliard Scholarship, right? And Troy did not know that his name was thrown into the mix. He later finds out that it was Miss Darbus who submitted his name, right? But after they announce that it was Troy, it was Sharpay, it was Ryan, it was Kelsey, right? Sharpay has this annoyance, Troy Bolton, he's acting all innocent, but he knows exactly what he's doing, right? It's funny because of all the times that she has tried to get with Troy, right? Like a status symbol, really, at the end of the day, but simultaneously sees him as a threat. In High School Musical 2, when Gabriella strikes back at Sharpay, we hear this dialogue. You don't like the fact that I won. What's the prize, Troy? The Star Dazzle Award? You have to go through all this just to get either one? No thanks, Sharpay. You're very good at a game that I don't want to play, so I'm done here. But you better step away from the mirror long enough to check the damage that will always be right behind you. Boom! Boom! Killer line from Gabriella, right? This was never really about Troy in per se, right? Like I said, this is not like Sharpay going like, I really, really like Troy, like how can I get him, right? He is a status symbol, right? Because she simultaneously wants to still push Troy back to the status quo, because at the end of the day, Troy is still a threat to her. At the end of the day, Sharpay didn't authentically like Troy for who he was in comparison to Gabriella, right? She wanted control of the situation, not just by getting her one up saying, like, I got Troy and you didn't, haha, Gabriella, sorry, right? But also that she was simultaneously kind of being like, you can perform with me, but I'll always be above you, right? Similar to Ryan, right? Because Sharpay and Ryan, you would think that they're on the same level, right? But and even after she has kicked Ryan out of their musical number, says that, hey, I have no plans in making sure that you will also be able to participate, right? Because Ryan's still competition at the end of the day, right? She still is using an us against them language, right? But the thing is, Ryan's not getting any perks. He's not performing with her anymore, right? So later on, when she sees that he is helping the Wildcats do this number, right? She says, do you want us to lose the Star Dazzle Award to a bunch of dishwashers? And he says, us? Well, I guess that's showbiz. When did you become one of them, right? Even though we are pretending like you exist on the same level, right? We're using this us. It's us against them, right? You are no longer getting those perks, right? And this is interesting, I think, in the way Sharpay treats Ryan, in the way Sharpay treats Troy. It is about control. If she has control over the situation, right, she can make someone feel like this is a choice you're making, or these are the perks I'm giving you, right? But at the end of the day, she does not see them as equals, and it is all about control. And isn't this idea so interesting? When you take this idea outside of High School Musical, relate this to the real world. How have we made people who exist on different parts of the hierarchy feel like they are there, when really there is one person pulling all of the strings? And as soon as you are not doing what you want them to do, they will try to pull the strings to control you, to make you think that it is your decision to do something a certain way to fulfill what they really want at the end of the day, right? In High School Musical, we see Sharpay trying to get Troy to make this decision to go with basketball at the end of the day. Yes, he was still confused, but if he was going to get that privilege from Sharpay, maybe that's what he would have done. How in the real world can we see this kind of mimicking of, you would think we exist on the same level, but we actually don't. And when it comes back to these people in power and their selfish tendencies, they are going to do what's right for them and try to convince you that that is what's right for you as well, when really it doesn't serve you, right? Sharpay did not have Troy's best interest in mind, right? Troy was confused, right? Up till High School Musical 3, that's the thing in the status quo, right? It doesn't happen overnight. You're constantly thinking about, is this what I want to do? Do I want to do basketball? Do I want to do theater? Can I do both? Like, right? But Sharpay was kind of giving him an in to kind of make that decision for him so that he wouldn't be a threat to her, right? Because he still does challenge Sharpay, even though, like I said, they wouldn't be going out for the same parts in any regard, right? He challenges her place and what she thinks she deserves, that she is better than, right?